Welcome to the Terrible Podcast with your hosts from SteelersDepot.com, where you can find all your latest and greatest Steelers news. It's Dave Bryan and Alex Kozora, always lit, talking Steelers. And now, here's Dave and Alex.
Welcome to the Terrible Podcast, Season 13, Episode 30. He's Dave Bryan. I'm Alex Kozora, SteelersDepot.com. Glad you guys are back with us here for this Wednesday show. Dave, it is official. The Kenny Pickett era has begun. Mike Tomlin officially naming Pickett the Steelers starting quarterback for Week 5, and we assume for the foreseeable future yesterday during his Tuesday press conference. So, Dave, how you doing? And welcome to the Pickett era.
Oh, yeah. Wow. Here we are. And it kind of did happen organically, I guess, in a sense. If I would have taken, if you would have asked me three choices, would this happen injury related? Would it happen just a switch from 1 week to the next, or a middle of a game switch, how this would have went down? I think middle of the game switch would have been the last thing that I would have, if asked to rank those things. But look, we knew at some point this season Pickett was going to get in there and be the quarterback. I envisioned it being more along the bye week there, but obviously, and Mike Tomlin gave a good rundown of what led to the decision to make the switch, not only post game, but during this Tuesday press conference as well. And as we said the other day, once the toothpaste is out of the tube, you can't put it back in there. Barring Kenny Pickett just playing absolutely horrible in that second half of the Jets game, which he did not. And the hand was really forced at this point to keep him in there. Although Tomlin did say he did give some consideration of going back to Mitch for this game against Buffalo because of him, the familiarity aspect that Trubisky has. And I would imagine that with the road environment and all like that. But here we are. And the other headline this morning is from Ryan Clark saying, the Steelers are really, really bad this year as well, too. So a little gloom and doom from Ryan Clark to go along with, which is obviously a lot of excitement now, with Kenny Pickett, because now we get to sit back and watch and see this kid go through some, highs and lows and develop and see if he can actually become the team's next franchise quarterback.
Sure. Well, for me, it's hard to see that path of hope forward to see where this team gets back on track and could potentially get competitive again. There's still a lot of intrigue about this season, and really it comes down to getting to watch and evaluate Kenny Pickett grow. And as we've talked about, as we'll continue to talk about, there's going to be ups and downs and highs and lows. But this season really, here on out, is about what does this team potentially have in Kenny Pickett? How does he look to be either the face or not of this team next year, when hopefully you can kind of regroup and re-add and be a bit better and hopefully be more competitive in 2023. So for me, that's really where this rest of the season goes, is to what can Kenny Pickett do? And we'll start finding out more about that on Sunday.
Absolutely. They're telling since week 12 of 1969, largest spread for Pittsburgh. I guess this is Pittsburgh in total. They're saying on Get Up on ESPN here. Obviously, during the NFL, since 1970 and as a whole, the Steelers have never been a 14-point underdog, or an underdog that much in a game. In fact, I think it's something like 12 and a half? What was the spreads against the Chiefs last year?
It was 12 and a half. It was 12 and a half against the Oilers in 92. I believe it was 13 and a half in the Super Bowl against Dallas in 95, whatever year that was. But largest Pittsburgh in the regular season has ever been an underdog.
Right. Get me back on track here. What we Pickett and that. But yeah, I mean, look, it is a very exciting time within that and that itself, because you don't have a quarterback, you're not going to win in the NFL. You know, it's just plain and simple. You've got to have, an above average quarterback, in my opinion, to win in the NFL. And we will now start the journey here of trying to figure out if the Steelers have that above average quarterback, that they can take in, and I think we even said, or I said, I don't think that the Steelers Super Bowl window opens back up again until maybe 2023 at the earliest. And that's dependent on how quickly Kenny Pickett gets in a game and can develop off of theirs. So I think we both agree and have agreed for a while, even before the season started, that the 2022 Steelers were not going to go to the Super Bowl.
Right. And that's a fair assessment to maintain 4 games into the season.
Right. When you look at some key metrics related to them specifically, and the keyest of all key metrics, their record of 1-3 at this point, and staring down the barrel of 1-4 with the Buffalo game upcoming. You got to try to figure out who he is, what identity potentially you can become on offense, and what you need, what pieces you need this next offseason to get you back in the hunt for a Lombardi.
Exactly. It'll be weird for Steelers fans who are normally accustomed to watching about this season and trying to compete and win the North and win a Super Bowl and all those things. I think the mindset will have to shift a little bit to really watching towards the future in terms of the guys that are on the team right now who could potentially be the building blocks for 2023 and beyond, whether you're talking Kenny Pickett, George Pickens, et cetera, et cetera. So that's kind of where my head is at overall. I do want to talk about in a moment the roster moves Pittsburgh made yesterday on the practice squad, but just to go back to the quarterback situation and Mitch Trubisky, I've been thinking about this a little bit more, Dave. Trubisky really was not terrible. It just, to me, the reason for the move ended up being a lot of different things, just a lack of production overall. That's the name of the game, but it's pretty clear Trubisky was not going to be the answer. He's not the long-term guy, never really was expected to be the long-term guy. There was not going to be any sort of massive career turnaround in Pittsburgh. And so either you're the answer or you're not. And if you're not, they're gonna find someone to replace you that may be the answer. And that guy, of course, being Kenny Pickett. And so that was really what it comes down to with Trubisky. I didn't think he was terrible in the first half against the Jets. There were a couple throws that he needed to have back. But right. I mean, if Deontay Johnson doesn't have that pass skimmed through his hands for the pick, and if he catches that touchdown, I don't think Trubisky gets benched to start the second half of that game. But bottom line is the offense was not productive. Trubisky, he is who he is, wasn't going to offer you anything different than really what he's ever been. And at that point, there really was no reason to continue to play him.
Yeah, and that's kind of how I have classified it. I think either on the live stream, I can't, we do so many of these things now, the live stream or the last podcast. I didn't think Trubisky has been awful throughout these 3.5 games, but he wasn't. There was no spark with the offense. There are obviously no chunk plays with this offense, and there's obviously has been no scoring with this offense. So you can be mediocre all day, but is that mediocre producing points, enough points to help you compete in games or not? And it's not. But I think I do technically think that we are 1 inch away from the Kenny Pickett era not being underway, literally, because if Deontay Johnson gets 2 feet in bounds on that throw, which who's to say how that plays out at that point? Does Tomlin make the switch at halftime? At that point, I tend to guess that he wouldn't have, but we'll obviously never know now. But Trubisky's play is what it was, and kind of is what I think was expected. I mean, and you're kidding yourself to think that he wasn't going to be, that he was going to be more than what he's been. up and throughout his career here. And, we've seen some of the things with him and not stepping up and drifting back in the pocket and not the best decisions. Now, it did seem like he's made a concerted effort to you only live once and push that football down the field this year. And in fact, and I put this out there yesterday on Twitter now that the SIS has updated their stats. He leads the league. He leads the league in air yard attempts of 20 yards or more. And who I know it doesn't feel like it probably because he didn't commit, didn't connect on many of those passes there. But the fact of the matter is he was trying to push the football down the field. He just, here it is, leads the NFL in air yard attempts of 20 yards or longer entering week 5 with 23, completed just 7 of those 23, however. So you can't accuse the guy of not trying to push the football down the field. In fact, he probably pushed the football down the field too much. And it's rare for those words to come out of my mouth because it's all about explosive plays, baby. And, but he did go out kind of swinging, if you will. And, but the fact of the matter remains though, is that the Steelers have, I think I used 10 the other day. That number's wrong. 12 explosive plays on the year of 20 yards or longer. All of them obviously have been through the air. And here's something else. Just 3 of those explosive plays that they have on the season have come with the ball being caught short of 20 yards and advanced past 20 yards. In other words, a yak related yards after the catch related explosive play. They only had 65 yards after the catch in the game against the Jets. That's not going to cut it either. So when you have an offense that's struggling, I mean, the running game has gotten a little better, but it's still not anywhere where you want it to be. So you can't run the ball. You can't produce explosive plays through the air. And more importantly, you can't put the ball in the end zone. That all spells disaster. That let's see what the other kid has.
Right. Name of the game is put points on the board. This team wasn't. Trubisky was just who he is. There really was no great reason to stick with him. You're going to just keep getting what you had been getting. And, you're trying to win a game. And that's the bottom line. And that's why the change was made.
Now, look, I think this is a delicate situation. Now you bring this guy in, you average 18 million, average 8 million per season, right? As far as earnings and this guy's legitimately thinking he's going to be the quarterback at least for one season here and he can revive his career and hold the rookie off and yada, yada. And 3.5 games into the season, he's on the bench now. I think as far as handling it goes, Mike Tomlin, at least in the media aspects of it, done a really, really good job of it. And look, all this team is not 1-3 only because of the quarterback, right? And sure. But does the quarterback play a role in that? Absolutely. Does a quarterback role play maybe more than a fair share of the role? Yeah, I think so indeed there. But I think Mike Tomlin did a very good job of, and especially on Tuesday of treating Trubisky with whatever respect he can get out of this remaining at this point.
I guess trying to be respectful as you bench a guy at the same time, trying to walk that line. But you never know. I mean, now Trubisky, because Tomlin said Trubisky will be the backup. And then number 2, it'll be Mason Rudolph still as the number 3, that Trubisky's one snap away. Pickett got hurt to coming back in the game. So you don't want to bury that guy too much because you may see him again at some point this season.
Right. Obviously, if Pickett can stay healthy and, I think you even let him go through an awful game if he has one.
Yeah. There's no quick hook on Pickett here
because you got to. quarterbacks are going to have those games at some point, regardless. I mean, remember a couple years ago, Roethlisberger and the game against the Jaguars, right? What was it, 5 interception game? I mean, even the good ones have bad games at some point. So, and if if a bad game happens this year for Pickett, let him stay in there and go through it and taste it and get over it. Those kind of things there. But I think, as far as the dog and pony show goes with this quarterback switch, I think Mike Tomlin's handled it well. I would expect Mitch Trubisky to obviously not like it, but handle it well and start working towards where he might be going from here after this season, because I think we have both agreed for some time Mitch Trubisky's not going to be on the Steelers 2023 roster at an $8 million salary.
Right. No chance. The question is just, how does he get removed from the roster? Is it a trade? Is it him being released? I'm of the mindset it's probably going to be a release, but we'll see.
All right. Thank you for opening up that rabbit hole there. Jason La Canfora came out with kind of that speculatory news, however you want to call it. Mitch Trubisky, could possibly be traded by the trade deadline. Personally, I don't see that happening. I think it price pays what you can get plays a big part in the possibility of that happening. And it would, take a team probably in a playoff hunt that needs a quarterback with experience to maybe overpay in that situation there. But what do you think about the likelihood of Mitch Trubisky being dealt by November 1st?
Pretty low. I'm just not sure what team would have interest, what the compensation would be, and just in general to see quarterbacks get traded, mid-season is pretty rare, not impossible. I mean, Josh Dobbs got dealt a couple of years ago, 2019. People remember that. But my expectation is Trubisky will finish the year as Pittsburgh's number 2.
Who is more likely to get traded, if any, by the November 1st deadline? Mitch Trubisky, Mason Rudolph, or Chase Claypool is the other name people want run out of town now. Oh, Uncle Dave was wrong calling him putting a 3rd round grade on Chase Claypool, but now everybody now a lot of people want Chase Claypool gone for a bag of footballs. Imagine that. But Answer the question, sir.
I think all 3 stay. Who's most likely? I guess Trubisky, just because there's tape out there. Maybe the Giants, if they can be competitive. They had a lot of interest in him. Obviously, Brian Daboll working with him in Buffalo. They got some injuries at quarterback right now with Daniel Jones. I believe Tyrod Taylor has a concussion. So I guess Trubisky, but my expectation is all 3 guys stay.
All right. That's mine as well, too. And also, I put this in my terrible take yesterday. The last time the Steelers were I guess, quote unquote, sellers or really traded any player away, before a trade deadline was way back in 1993 with Tim Worley.
Wasn't Melvin Ingram? Are you not including Melvin Ingram last year?
Well, okay, Melvin Ingram then, I guess.
Okay, but yeah. I mean, that was he actively wanted out,
right? I mean, I meant just, and really, I guess to some degree, Worley did as well too there. So,
true.
But beyond the whole Melvin Ingram fiasco there, the only other player was Tim Worley, and they were a 4-2 team at the time.
Okay, gotcha. Yeah, and just in general, I mean, there are not a lot of trades. The NFL trade deadline is not like NBA or MLB or NHL where it's super active. I mean, trades will happen, but generally they're small and far and few between.
Right, I sidetracked I did get forgetful in the Melvin Ingram aspect of it, other than it was kind of a given that he was wanting out. So,
right.
But I mean, they indeed, in fact, were sellers in that situation and got a draft pick for him. But I don't see them being active sellers in this situation. They could now, and I would think it would be more one of the quarterbacks more than anything there.
They won't be buyers, I'll tell you that much. So if anything,
no.
They'll be neutral or sellers, but we'll see what things look like whenever that November trade deadline comes closer. Again, as I mentioned earlier, Steelers making a couple of practice squad moves on Tuesday. They signed to their practice squad center Ryan McCollum and safety Scott Nelson. McCollum was with the team in training camp, got released, and has kind of bounced on and off. Nelson, athletic, undrafted free agent out of Wisconsin, spent time with Seattle. Pittsburgh had a pre-draft Zoom call with him, and so they had interest in Nelson prior to the draft. In corresponding moves to make room for McCollum and Nelson, Pittsburgh releasing punter Jordan Berry and wide receiver Jacory Roberson. Berry, of course, being the insurance for Harvin last week. Harvin played. He's good to go. Roberson has been on and off the practice squad all year long.
Okay.
So those are the moves there. All right, to talk about Mike Tomlin, who had his press conference Tuesday, as we just talked about, all the explanations and details on making the official switch from Mitch Trubisky to Kenny Pickett. I think we covered that one pretty well overall. What else did Mike Tomlin say that struck you from an injury report standpoint? Basically the same names he mentioned exiting the Jets game. Essentially ruled out Akella Witherspoon for this week, still dealing with that hamstring injury suffered in week 3 against the Browns. Talked about how Cam Sutton called it a groin or hamstring, so that little clarification there. Said that Cam Hayward with his elbow and ankle and Minka with his knee are needing to be managed, and that Terrell Edmonds is of course still in concussion protocol.
Yeah, look, that's quite a laundry list of defensive players, and while it looks like most of those guys are going to play, it still puts you short, heading into the week here, right? So, and this is obviously trying to prepare for a very good Buffalo Bills team, and I think Mike Tomlin did a good job of saying, look, we can kind of use that as a positive because we needed some of these guys to step up because of injury and all like that in this last game because of them going down and obviously not having Witherspoon and that kind of thing there. So it is going to be interesting to watch this play out, maybe specifically with Cam Sutton, right? Because I mean, that's a guy that has both a hamstring and a groin, I think, and he's a guy that ended the week obviously no status designation on the injury report. And look, I thought Cam Sutton for as a whole played well in that game, but I think and I still have optimism that he'll play against Buffalo. I just think that they probably need to give him several days though of very, very, very limited action, and I think that he's probably not going to practice a whole lot this week.
I know Tomlin's trying to spin this into what an opportunity for the young guys, and that's true, but essentially probably practice on Wednesday, their entire starting secondary is not going to work or be very, very limited in working. And so that's not a comforting thought whenever you're just days away from facing a high-powered Bills offense of Josh Allen, Diggs, Davis, Knox, etc. So don't feel too comfortable about that. I mean, my guess is Hayward, Fitzpatrick plays. Witherspoon, as Tomlin very much implied, will not. We'll see on Edmonds and we'll see on Sutton is kind of where I'm at right now. But this team was certainly hindered and curtailed by defensive back injuries against the Jets. I can only imagine what that looks like against the Bills if they're not fully healthy.
Yeah, and we'll talk more about how they were kind of hamstrung, if you will, later in this show here, thanks to kind of some research that you did in the post that you put on the site earlier this morning.
What else from Tomlin stuck out to you? I think that was the bulk of it. Obviously, a ton of questions about Kenny Pickett, understandably so. Again, talked about DeMarvin Leal and liked his trajectory overall and the improvement in getting a lot of snaps here. His team has been, to their credit, very creative with different personnel groupings, 3-3-5, 3-4, with 3 inside linebackers in the field, 3-5. They're trying to find ways to, as much as you possibly can, minimize the lack of TJ Watt, and probably DeMarvin Leal has been the guy who's seen the greatest amount of extra playing time with Watt being out.
And did you hit on the Calvin Austin aspect of it?
I was just going to, yeah. Tomlin asked twice yesterday, basically, what is the status of Austin? And Tomlin just gave the factual answer of he's eligible to return that 21-day window. He says, quote, the quality of his work and what he's able to do within that window oftentimes determines what you do from there. So didn't really commit to him starting to practice on Wednesday, but today is the key day. We'll see if he gets activated to begin practice, open up that 21-day window. I think there's a good chance that will happen with Tomlin. Very much wouldn't commit one way or the other yesterday.
Yeah, we'll see here easily, I think, in the next 24 hours, right? And probably particularly today, whether or not they open up that window on him. So I wouldn't be surprised if it happens maybe in the next, by the time we get done with this podcast, possibly here. But
even if he is, don't expect him to play this weekend. Because he's a rookie, conditioning, game shape. It's going to probably be at least till the Tampa game week 6 for him to play.
Right, and especially with him being a rookie and the moving train and yada yada, and the time that he missed leading up to it, and that kind of thing there. And I wouldn't be surprised if they got closer to the 21-day aspect of it too before getting him up and running there. So we'll just have to wait and see if they open that window today or tomorrow, and then kind of go from there. You would think though, with the injury that he had, I mean, he's got to be healthy enough now at this point, you would think. If he's not, then there's something else that went on with that injury.
I'd like to think so. I mean, it's been, 2 months, I don't know, a month and a half since he got hurt. And I mean, he didn't seem, whenever he got hurt in camp, he was walking around fine, catching passes and stuff like that. So I'd like to think he's good now. We never knew the exact nature of the injury, so it's hard to say for sure, but I'd like to think he'll begin the practice this week.
All right, Tomlin's comments on Kenny overall.
I mean, talked about the confidence in him and that, he understands it's going to be a tough environment to walk into going to Buffalo, being these historic underdogs Pittsburgh is. But I'm not mad about that. That's life of the NFL. You're going to have hard matchups. If Pickett is the guy, if he truly is, the franchise quarterback this team, made him to be whenever they took him as the first quarterback off the board, he'll weather all of that. Again, he'll have ups and downs and he'll have bad games and moments where you want to question yourself. But if he's the guy, you'll work through all that stuff. The NFL is hard. It's messy. It requires a high standard of play. But if Pickett's the guy, he's the guy. So that's basically what Tomlin's saying. Right.
And not going to grade on a curve and all that stuff that goes along with it there. So the only other really, I guess, or one of the other things we're talking about is Gunner Olszewski.
Right. Mitch Trubisky might not be the only Steeler getting benched, as Mike Tomlin asked about the level of comfort with Gunner Olszewski, who had his second fumble in 4 games. And Mike Tomlin saying, quote, in terms of level of comfort, not very high, to be quite honest with you. You can't put 2 balls on the ground in 4 games and feel good about it. 2 is a pattern in the National Football League. We say that often. We say that about runners as ball security, whether it's 4 games or 8 games or 12 games. 2 in our business is a pattern. And so we got some work there this week and some decisions to make. Later said, we will look at some other options as well. So as of the depth chart, Olszewski is still listed as the starter, whatever that's worth, which is probably not a ton, but certainly would not be surprised to see a Steven Sims get an opportunity this weekend.
Yeah, it makes the inactive list a lot leaves a little bit of a question in there this week. My gut feeling is the shot has been fired now, and Gunner will get one more chance to correct it.
Yeah, he could. I mean, it wouldn't at this point. I don't know which way it's going to go. I'm sure maybe a little bit's based on just the feel of practice and his level of confidence and how Gunner's kind of handling all that. But we'll see. I mean, it could go either way. I'll just kind of sit back and see what this team decides Sunday at 11:30.
Right. And, but we should not be surprised if it does go. It's going to be one or the other, right? There's no way that you're going to make 6 wide receivers active, right?
No, I can't see that happening.
Right.
Unless there's so many injuries that they just kind of allows them to. But.
Right. And who knows the way this secondary is banged up right now. Okay. Anything else? He's asked about TJ that question and answer with TJ Watt was pretty funny there. TJ's still on IR, and he has a couple weeks left on there. But what is his progress like at this point? Tomlin said he's on IR and he has a couple weeks still left on there. Typical Tomlin, fashion there, especially with the person that asked the question there. Anything else kind of stick out with this thing? Talk about running game improving every single way. Boy, he put Von Miller in the Hall of Fame, not like he was probably not going anyway, right?
Yeah, well, Von's going to be there someday. So Tomlin just getting an early jump on things. Praising Von Miller very much. Said some guys are aliens visiting from another planet, and talked about the 2018 Pro Bowl in which Von Miller had the game-clinching strip sack, fumble, turnover. And, hey, I know it's the Pro Bowl, but the winners got $64,000 and losers got $32,000. So that was a $32,000 play for Mike Tomlin, Von Miller in the AFC.
I think Mike Tomlin's trying to take the early lead of who might try to make the induction of Von Miller. Look, that guy's a fantastic player, and we've heard Highsmith talk about him and that ghost move. Mm-hmm. And I mean, this guy's still going after all these years. And you want to talk about a guy that you better know where he's at on Sunday in this game for sure. So rightful praise there. Mike Tomlin also gave a lot of praise to Josh Allen and how, with the eligibles that they have and because of the things that the Steelers have going on, I guess, in some personnel groupings because of injuries that you wish you could have 12 or 13 guys out there instead of 11. And I'm not even sure the Steelers could get it done with 12 right now against that bill. Now the Bills do have one of their wide receivers, I think, in concussion protocol, right?
Do they? Is it Gabe Davis?
I think Isaiah.
McKenzie.
Yeah, I think, but we'll have to see whether or not he plays there and all. But they still have Stephon Diggs, and I think we can count on Mike Tomlin. It's no secret, probably going to be a lot of bracketing, or they're not going to. I think they're going to try their best to not let Diggs kill them. In addition to not letting Josh Allen kill him with the things that he can do with his legs.
It all looks good on a whiteboard. It all looks good in the game plan. Then you get out there on the field and it gets a lot harder. So, I mean, every team wants to say, can't let Allen beat you with his legs. Can't let Diggs beat you with his route running. And the Bills always get the job done. So that'll be the plan. How well does it get executed is a different story.
I think he was asked specifically, how do you kind of stop a guy like Josh Allen? He said, build a fence. Quite a task. All right. Anything left over from Tomlin? I think we hit most of that. Was a long opening statement from him. And I think he kind of justified it by saying that's why I want to give a lot of attention to it, kind of smoothing over the quarterback change transition, if you will.
Yeah, I mean, remember, he uses these pressers to talk to his players and his team as much, if not more, than it is him talking to you and I in the media and the fan base. And so probably a message he was trying to send to this team about Trubisky, about Pickett. And, I know back in 2019 they played quarterback roulette, but putting that weird season with the injury to Ben aside, this is the first time Tomlin's really had to handle a quarterback situation like this. So this is new for him, and you're trying to be careful and trying to say the right things and walk that line. That's probably tough to walk, and you won't be perfect about it. But as Tomlin's done basically everything in his career but deal with a quarterback change situation. And so this is a rare moment that he's going to deal with something new on his plate. Okay, where to coming out of? I think we've torn up the Tomlin presser pretty good here. Yep, and we talked about the injuries as well. We'll get the first injury report here on Wednesday. So let's talk about the all-22 of this game. Dave, where do you want to start? Steelers offense, defense. Obviously, a lot of people asking, how well did you think Kenny Pickett played in his debut against the Jets? I thought Kenny, it's easy to look at the stat line once again and see the 3 interceptions and to see the negative adjusted net yards per passing attempt number. But it was a limited amount of pass attempts, and you can add context to the
3 interceptions, especially the last one being a Hail Mary to end the game there overall. I mean, for what he did and was asked to do in that second half, I give him a passing grade. And you don't make, once again, you don't make hard sweeping, this guy's very good, going to be the future of the franchise, or this guy, they missed on this after 1 game, 2 games, 3 games, 5 games, in my opinion, there. But I thought there were some things there to definitely, kind of hang his hat on and at least be kind of motivated to see what he can do and how much further he can progress, moving forward there. Yeah, on the interception to Freiermuth, you probably not a good decision to see him kind of drift like he did in that. But and then obviously with the footwork and I went back and found specifically what happened on there, because I think Pickett even said after the game, I think my foot might have gotten stepped on there with the pitch, and it did indeed look like Dotson stepped on him there. I think it's just little things and more game action now and more stuff that he can see moving forward. He did attempt to push the football down the field, and even starting with that first pass attempt of his. Look, at some point during games, you have to give your guy an opportunity to make a play, right?
Right.
I mean, Ben Roethlisberger was notorious for that. And thankfully for a lot of his career, he had guys like, you know what? Go back to that. And I don't know what spurred this thought. Maybe it's because it just recently came up in my timeline there. But remember that play against the Chiefs a couple years ago, where Ben kind of threw that ball over to the side, and Antonio Brown ended up getting it, and it looked like that thing was going to be a pick six, and instead it ended up in Antonio Brown's hands and going the other way for a touchdown. Mm-hmm. I mean, there are times where in the NFL where you have to see if your guys are better than their guys, period. It's not all cut and dry of running on air every week. You'd like it to be, but it's hopefully you'll have situations where you have a Martavis Bryant-like player running away from people in the form now of George Pickens and that kind of thing. But at some point during games, you have to put your guy in a 50-50 situation, I think. And
right.
That was a case of that happening. It just so happened that it was Kenny Pickett's first pass attempt of his NFL career. And, could the ball been thrown in a better place, yada, yada. But still, his guy had a 50% chance, if not better, to come down with that ball, and he did not. So I just think as a whole, looking at, and you did a great job. If anybody missed it yet, it really is a good look, all 22 breakdown of not every snap, but damn near close to a lot of them there that Pickett had. And I don't see how you can come away from that without giving Pickett at least a passing grade of some level. What do you want to call it? I don't know, B-, a B+, an A-. I would kind of term it, I don't know. I thought it was like a B+ if I had to grade it.
I would just say, especially given the context of this guy really hasn't had many reps. I mean, he's coming in pretty cold. He's running second string quarterback, not seeing a lot of practice time. I mean, that throw to Claypool, when do you think the last time he even made a throw like that in practice? Probably not since the summer, since training camp. He's throwing 50 yards downfield on this deep crossing route from the opposite hash. I mean, that's probably something he hasn't done recently. So, I think the context to coming in cold has to be, accounted for when evaluating his play. But overall, as I said on Monday, I was encouraged by his play. The interceptions certainly need a level of context to them. I thought he was in control, in command, read coverage as well, was decisive, was tough, stood tall in the pocket. Again, that throw to Freiermuth was fantastic and really shows the best of what Kenny Pickett can be. Just from a negative standpoint, maybe some slight inaccuracy on the move on some of those rollouts and trying to hit a moving target, but that'll come in time. And again, I thought the pocket movement was probably the worst thing he showed, bailing on one clean pocket on a play action And then the interception to Fryermuth, really the worst part of that play was him drifting so much and really inviting pressure that forced maybe a less than ideal throw that obviously got picked. So, but overall, I mean, just to come in cold, to make plays, to move the offense, to be really efficient on possession downs and move the sticks and sustain drives. Overall, again, for a guy that's been not doing much, over the first couple weeks of the season, being the backup, working maybe some scout teams type stuff, to see him come in and play reasonably well to start is encouraging.
Well, here's the thing. They were able to move the football some, and they were able to put points on the board. And
that's the name of the game.
And that's something that we really, didn't see a lot of. Now, look, they have, I don't care who's back there. They have got to find a way to manufacture explosive plays more. They've got to find a way to get the ball in the hands of people moving out, other playmakers in space. They cannot, even with Kenny Pickett, I don't think, continue to throw the football down the field in 20-plus yard chunks. There, you want to see that during a game, but you're going to have to get it through other aspects first to help probably improve your chances of throwing the football down the field and kind of completing those passes. Some of those back shoulders, look, it's not an explosive play, but some of them back shoulders for 13 yards aren't bad, right?
Right.
Because they should move the chains in those instances. Biggest thing, either get a first down on first or second down, or get this offense continually in a 3rd and 4 or less situation. And I think Kenny Pickett will be able to convert more of those than not.
Yeah, and that goes back to, as you talked about, showing trust in your receivers, throwing those, back shoulders to George Pickens, trusting that his guy will make the play. And that's what Pickett's been able to show and instill and get results from. And even, I think, didn't Pickett say after the Claypool interception post game that, he told Claypool, I'm going to come back to you. That's a very Ben thing to say.
Mm-hmm.
Ben was always the mindset of, make a mistake. Don't worry, I'm going to come back to you. We're going to, try again. Now, I don't know if Pickett actually did in that game, but just a good mindset about being a leader and saying, we'll brush that one off and we'll get it right next time.
All right, we already kind of picked this apart a lot. I mean, if Claypool comes down with that pass, I mean, there might be a parade. I'm being obviously hyperbole there, but it's such a results-driven thing, and everybody goes, has a lot of people have access to the tape now and all like that. That it's easy to hyper focus on a lot of things that resulted in that pass not being completed. I just keep going back to the fact that at some point during games, in key points of games, a quarterback's going to ask one of his guys probably downfield to make a play in a 50-50 situation. And regardless of where that ball, how that ball maybe should have had more distance or placement, all like that, it still ended up being a 50-50 proposition, putting his teammate in ability to make a play, and his teammate did not make a play.
Right. And it's a good matchup. It's your 6'4" receiver on a 5'8" safety. That's a throw. That's a decision you want to make every single time.
Right. Now, we don't want to have to say this week in, week out. Well, he put a 50-50 ball there, and the Steelers didn't come down with it. I mean, it's not it's just know that things like that happen during games, and hopefully your guy's going to come down with them more times than not. And
right.
Look, Claypool, and people say, well, Claypool's never made these contested catches during his career. He made quite a few of them his rookie season, did he not?
He did. He flashed. I mean, he has the talent. He has the ability to do that. I'm not really sure what the issue. Again, understanding it, you're not going to win all those situations, but he's losing more than he should be.
Right.
And I don't know why though. I'm trying to figure out how to fix that. I don't have a good answer.
Yeah, I wish I had the answer to that as well too. And he's going to have to get back making some plays.
He is, certainly, because you want to throw some of those deep shots. As you talked about, this offense needs those chunk plays, and Claypool needs to be a component of that. And right now, he's averaging What is Claypool averaging on the season per catch? I hadn't checked. I mean, he didn't catch a pass on Sunday, so I still think he's at his average coming into the game of 7 yards, 5 yards. What has he had this year? He's at 7.2.
Not much.
Yeah,
not much.
He's been at 14 his first 2 years. He's at 7 right now.
I tell you too, his blocking's been a lot less than desired, and I don't know how much this will happen, and I don't want to get too far ahead of ourselves talking about the game against the Bills here, but man, Miles Boykin's sure giving it his all out there in every aspect of the game, is he not?
No, he's doing a good job. I mean, he's a big body blocker in that mold of Claypool, and he's being used in those heavy personnel. When they went 22 personnel with a fullback, they were quite out there. Boykin was that lone receiver and did a nice job on some of those crack toss plays.
He is blocking his you-know-what off, and I think because of that, you need to reward some of that at some point. He's obviously going to dress, and what I'm getting at here is I think he deserves maybe a 3, 4, 5 more snaps on the field, and I think he deserves a shot at going deep and going and get one.
Yeah, the only problem is they've given him those chances, whether that was the summer or week 1 against the Bengals, and he's yet to make a single play on that. So, I mean, maybe he'll get another chance.
Well, I think he's earned at least another shot at one.
Yeah, I'm sure at some point, but just right now he's probably more specific to that package about that heavy personnel. So maybe they throw play action and take a deep shot out of it against the Bills.
Well, you can't throw him on the field every time and run the football.
All right. They're doing that with Gunner. I think Tyler Wise had the good stat of since week 1, Gunner Olszewski, whenever he's on the field, I think it's been 20 snaps. 19 of those have been runs. So it's a pretty bad tell when Gunner's on the field.
Right. And how many times do we talk about over the years when players come on the field with flashing red lights on their helmet?
Right. So, I mean, I know Gunner's playing in a lot of heavier packages to generally lend itself to the run, but probably need to adjust those numbers some.
Right. I agree. And all I'm saying is when Miles Boykin is out there, how about let's try to mix in something where maybe he gets a deep shot in there.
Sure. I'm with you 100%. We'll see if that happens. I imagine it probably will at some point this year, one of those heavy groupings. Anything else from the offense? Any other impressions from the All-22? Anything on the line?
I mean, I thought the line played okay. It's like when we've seen bad for so long that when it's quote unquote good, it's not excellent. And when it's bad, it's really, really bad. Man, they gave up a sack with the 3-man pass rush in that game, and they had one, what they call a P dropper in that one, where the defensive lineman, obviously is up over the middle of the line, looking like you're going to be a 4-man rush, and he drops into coverage in the middle of the field there. That's the one that they gave up a 3-man sack on. How do you let that happen?
Yeah, I'm trying to think back to that play. I've yet to do my sack breakdown. I know that P dropper worked well because they did that on the interception. Then they got a sack off of it later in the game on that 3-man rush. The thing with a 3-man rush is if you still get a one-on-one matchup, then it's still a one-on-one matchup if you have an end on a tackle. I'm trying to think though. Who do you have an idea of who was most at fault or what was that? The state stunt on that play.
It ended up being. I think it's going to end up being on Chukwuma Okorafor more than anything, maybe but when the P dropper drops, obviously James Daniels comes over to help that way.
Right.
But there was no help to really kind of give because you beat around the edge and to the outside,
Right. Yeah. I mean, ideally,
I don't think Mason Cole had a great rep on that either, and a little bit of pressure. But I mean, you can't give your quarterback's got to stay clean on 3-man rushes.
He does, but like I was saying, if it's end versus tackle, it doesn't matter if that's the only matchup on the field. If the end beats the tackle and to the edge, and there's no help inside, then that's the matchup that really only matters. Ideally, you would know that guy's going to drop out, or Okorafor can set a bit wider to force him inside because you have inside help there. But obviously, you don't know that before the snap of the football.
What else offensively stuck out? What do you think about the offensive line? Is it kind of as I described when it's quote unquote good? It's just really okay.
Yeah, I think their best has still been roughly average, but I mean, overall, you're seeing weekly progression, whether that's run block, and the guys got a good push, and I thought Kevin Dotson did a nice job in the run game. Overall, in pass pro, I thought they had some issues with dealing with stunts and a little bit of the Jets, sim pressure package, some difficulty there, but overall, you're seeing that improvement. I mean, they ran the ball, pretty well in this game. I don't really have a whole lot of issues with their overall run game production.
Okay.
All right, let's flip over to the Steelers defense, and I'll let you start things off here, Dave, with your impressions of that unit, and obviously seeing that fourth quarter collapse.
I think you can boil it on down to the Terrell Edmunds injury and move forward from there. And I think you did a good job of really pointing that out in the post this morning on Steelers Depot about how they got stuck in a package at that point. There, and obviously because the Bills were down like they were, they notated what was going on out there, and the Steelers got in a situation where they didn't have proper personnel to defend what the Jets started to do.
Right, and I wrote about that this morning. You can check out the whole article on Steelers Depot entitled "Explaining Why the Steelers Defense Collapsed Sunday." And not to excuse them at all. Bottom line is they got to get the job done. They got a 10-point lead against the Jets. They allowed 2 long scoring touchdown drives, and that's unacceptable. So none of this is excusing their play at all. It's just explaining some of the issues. Essentially what happened is, they don't have Witherspoon coming into the game. They lose Edmonds during the game. That made Millette an every down nickel corner. He's supposed to be the quote-unquote rundown, early down, first down kind of slot corner with Trey Norwood or Cam Sutton playing the slot in passing situations. With Witherspoon out, Cam Sutton got stuck on the outside. And then once Edmonds went down, Norwood replaces him, which means there is no dime defender. Norwood's supposed to be the dime defender, the 6 DB on the field. And so in the fourth quarter, Pittsburgh had to stay in their nickel defense because they really couldn't go dime. Sutton can't play in the slot. Millette's in the slot, and he gets picked on a ton. And so that's really what it boils down to, this team being stuck in its nickel package with Millette, a rundown corner, now asked to cover, and that's not his strength overall. And so that's really essentially what happened. It is fair to wonder and argue, why not play somebody like James Pierre on the outside and then bump Sutton inside and then take Millette off the field? So, I mean, Pierre probably hasn't gotten a lot of reps and hasn't played, meaningful snaps defensively in a while. So that's probably the reason why they didn't do it. But it also probably does not speak too highly of their thoughts on James Pierre to not play him and just watch Millette get cooked over and over and over again.
Well, look, we already know that Witherspoon's likely out again this week, right? And you got some guys banged up on top of it. And you just hope those other guys, including Edmonds, clears protocol and all like that. But it is kind of damning that you already had one injury in one game, and one other injury to Edmonds facilitated you getting stuck in a package that you didn't want to be in, right? Personnel grouping that you didn't want to be in here. They probably are going to have to put James Pierre in a sink or swim type situation against the Bills here, or else you're going to have to play a lot more of that. How many snaps from the Edmonds injury on? How many times were they in that grouping of how many plays
of nickel?
Right.
I'll have to check here. I mean, anytime they went sub, they were in nickel, and Millette was on the field. That they didn't take him off. So I mean, they were nickel the entire fourth quarter essentially. So I mean, it was 20-something snaps.
All right.
I guess Pierre probably will practice more this week, given that, Sutton's coming into the week injured.
And that's something that Mike Tomlin said. Look, he tried to twist it into a positive. This will give guys an opportunity who don't get many reps to get more reps in practice and, hopefully be ready for action.
Right. So potentially maybe we could see Pierre play a bit more. That's if Sutton plays. I mean, if neither of these guys play, if Witherspoon's going to be out, if Sutton misses as well, then you're really struggling at Edmonds. Who the heck knows what's going to happen with the concussion protocol? So again, not to excuse it, but it's like the old, what did Tomlin say back when that Chargers game ran out of bullets? This team ran out of bullets against the Jets.
Right.
Any other defensive thoughts overall, Dave?
I mean, I thought overall, up until those last few, how was the play?
Lincoln, yeah.
Yeah, with the whole Lincoln phrase and all like that. mean, I thought they played fairly well overall, up until losing Edmonds in that game.
What do you think about all the different, personnel groupings they're using, whether that's their 3 inside linebacker package, playing Lee Allen as a rush end, they're trying to do a lot. I don't know how much of it is working, but they're trying to compensate for losing Watt as much as possible.
Right. And that's understandable, right? Because it takes more than one guy
Sure.
and to replace him. You're still not going to replace him, period, anyway there. So, look, they are handcuffed by not having a better edge rusher over there on the side, while Watt is out for starters. They are kind of handcuffed with, Spillane and the things that he's good at, on the field. And he's obviously going to continue to see amount of snaps. Look, they are going to try to get the Bills are going to try to get themselves in a position, I know, with, I don't know, Dawson Knox or somebody lined up on Spillane, aren't they?
Oh, yeah. I'm sure they're going to try to take advantage of those matchups. Yeah, still don't understand how Spillane's being used in some of those pass game situations. But again, to go back to Sunday, because this team could not play in dime, they had to be a nickel. They had to play 2 inside linebackers. Now they're getting some matchups they probably don't want, situations where these guys would be off the field for an extra DB. That's not happening. So that did create some problems. But certainly Spillane in coverage, not really seeing the reason to use him in more of those coverage situations. I know Austin's talked about he's a good communicator, and that's all well and good. I'm sure that he is, but if you can't cover on third down, you can't play on third down.
Right. And they could later in that game, right?
I need to watch him more closely individually, but Kim Hayward, because I talked about how quiet it's been. I mean, he played well against the Jets, I thought, but he's not making those impact plays in the pass game. And I'm trying to figure out what has potentially changed, what's different, if anything, that's caused him to be quieter. Are you able to pinpoint anything?
I haven't drilled it down. Maybe I will here later on today, Wednesday night. Gives me a little bit more opportunity to kind of finish up on defense and stuff like that. I spent a lot of yesterday evening looking more and more at the offense and all, and things that were good and all. But look, he's getting more attention over there for starters, and he did go against 2 good guards in that week 2 and week 3 game, and but yeah, the Jets ended up, for all the issues that the Jets had with their offensive line. Now they did give up obviously a lot of pressure, or to at least to Alex Highsmith. Their Alex would like to redo that game. I'll tell you that, because there was some, what do you have, like 6 pressures in that game, and probably could have had 3 sacks in there, and obviously he only had 1 in total. And if he gets a couple more of those sacks in that game, or maybe that bad backwards pass, if he's able to, to force a turnover in that, I bet if anybody's kicking themselves about having a do-over in that game, it might be him. But look, Cam, the last, since week 1 hasn't been himself.
And I think some of that is certainly due to the extra attention he's seeing. He may have shifted his mindset some. I see a lot of times, and this is not brand new, but there are a lot of times where he's not even really rushing the passer because he can feel the slide to his side. And so immediately he's just trying to, bat the ball down and just kind of play volleyball player at the net and just try to key the quarterback and not really get after the quarterback. So that may be one reason, but he's not been able to bat any passes down either. And so that's not been working for him as it normally has in the past. So, they're trying to stunt him quite a bit. Maybe it's taken too long for him to stunt and be able to get to the quarterback. They stunted a lot in this game. Remember when Cam talked about we have checks for when the Jets use those wings and chip the DNs and all that kind of stuff. Their check is just to stunt every single time and just loop inside. And it had some success. I mean, it wasn't, but it also takes time for that stunt to kind of get home because you're getting chipped. Then you got to stunt and loop inside and try to beat the block or beat the guard. So that's why the pass rush overall was not super effective.
And here's the thing, and Mike Tomlin said in so many words that you're probably going to have to send numbers after Josh Allen, right? So you're already wishing you had 12 or 13 guys on the field, and you're going to have to, probably double Diggs quite a bit in this game. either bracket or just flat out double coverage in man type situations there. And then, you're going to want to try to probably send numbers against a guy like Josh Allen. The math doesn't, the math indeed does not add up when it comes to situations like that. And you have to, when you're dealing, and look, I mean, I'll say this, Wilson was, you already kind of knew the mobility that he had, coming out and all like that. I kind of wondered how rusty he might be, in this game against the Steelers. He wasn't overall, but when you're dealing with a guy like a big bull that can run in Josh Allen, how do you get after the quarterback yet contain?
Sure, it's a fine line to walk. It'll be really interesting to see the approach, because remember last year they didn't blitz Josh Allen. They didn't rush him at all. Remember Tomlin going on Pat McAfee saying the Bills probably expected us to blitz, and so we chose not to. Now Tomlin's is just a little bit of gamesmanship saying, we need to send numbers. And then are they not going to blitz, or are they going to blitz because last time they played Buffalo, they didn't blitz. Right. And now Buffalo's expecting that. So I wonder which way it's going to go. I'm not quite sure what Pittsburgh's going to decide to do overall, but certainly, trying to rush for and contain Josh Allen is going to be tough to do, especially if you're playing DeMarvin Leal. One downside to him playing that rush end is it's probably a bit harder to contain things on the edge in terms of keeping the quarterback in the pocket. There was the one play Michael Carter bounced wide because Leal simply lacked the foot speed of an outside linebacker to close that one off. Leal's played well overall, and there's advantages to him playing on the tight end because he's a bigger body and schooling them kind of like the way Pittsburgh's overfront has worked in the past. But there'll be a lot of small things I'll be watching for in terms of how Pittsburgh game plans for Buffalo, not blitzing last year. Will they carry that game plan over, or will they change things in anticipation of the Buffalo adjusting to expecting a lack of a blitz? It'll be a good chess match.
Yeah, good points.
What else was I going to say? The linebackers bite on play action pretty hard, and that's opening those windows behind. It happened in the Bengals game, happened against the Jets on Sunday.
Yeah, and that's one thing that I think I noted, that was very, very evident coming out of that game, even before the All-22 hit, was the fact that, they sure were respecting that run.
Right, and it's really the trap pass in particular. It's where they pull the guard on play action, and so they're getting that run key that guard's pulling, and so understandably you're going to come downhill on that, and then you're getting the dig stone behind you. I thought, and again, the Jets offense, as I talked about, they're pretty creative. I mean, they were doing a lot of good creative things and scheming guys open. Of course, ran that Philly for the touchdown to Zach Wilson, and there's some talent. I mean, Corey Davis is a good player. Garrett Wilson's a fantastic player. So, I mean, they kind of came together for them in the fourth quarter as Pittsburgh became really limited in what they could do, and then Wilson kind of got into a groove.
If Edmonds does not go down in that game with a concussion, what happens?
Well, they're certainly in a better spot. They can play their dime defense at the least, and that's going to help out. Now, Millett's still going to be on the field. Millett's still going to have to be out there, but maybe there's ways where Norwood kind of lines over slot on Davis, on Wilson more, and Millett's a bit more of a rover. Maybe they can blitz Millett more. So, it's hard to say exactly, but Pittsburgh's in a better spot because, again, when the Jets needed a big play, they found Arthur Millett and they picked on him. That was a 35-yard gain to Wilson. That was a 22-yard gain to Davis, both targeting Arthur Millett. And so I think that changes if Norwood can be more flexible.
And they made a conscious ability to stay the hell away from Minkah Fitzpatrick in the robber.
Right. I mean, Pittsburgh became very coverage limited. They didn't blitz, probably because they didn't want to risk, an already weakened secondary having to cover one-on-one. So they basically were running either just cover two or kind of a cover one robber where Minkah would spin down. And Wilson made the very smart analysis of find 39 and throw away from 39. And that worked well for them in the fourth quarter.
Sure did.
One last note, and this is a minor thing. I always love watching just the weird plays. The end of the first half Hail Mary. I just like watching who does what, who responds to what. And I just had two takeaways, and they're not going to be anything that I'm going to, make too much out of. But I love Najee Harris's effort on that play. Now that was all moot because there was the roughing the passer call on Trubisky, but I watched Harris run, dive, miss the tackle, get back up, run, and make the tackle. And so I just liked watching that. And Deontay Johnson never appeared on screen. There's not a lot of effort on some of these post-interception stuff, and it's happened a lot with him. That's end of half. He's frustrated. And so he's a guy that certainly seems to wear his emotions on his sleeve in game. But, I watched Chase Claypool jog back in the frame and at least at least try to show some interest in the play. And Deontay never appeared on screen after that Hail Mary.
Okay, good point.
All right, Dave, anything else to talk about? I think we covered the bulk of things. Anything else you wanted to address?
Do we hit all the kind of peripheral stuff in there?
From the All-22 or just in general?
Just in general from things that have happened and been said.
Looks like George Pickens is up for Rookie of the Week. We'll see if he wins it. No idea. Hadn't checked the other contenders, but we'll check that a little bit later in the week. And that's probably about it.
All right. And I think we're going to have Pickett talking today to the media, and I don't know who else is going to talk today, but we will recap all that on obviously on the site here later this afternoon. Trying to think if I'm missing anything here. Feels like I am, but I guess we're not. Okay, where do we go? Email?
Yep, let's get to reading emails and close out today's show.
All right, let me sort this real quick here. Christine Bond, is Cam Hayward banged up, or is he beginning to show his age? He had a low impact against a rookie Patriot guard and likewise second string Jet O-line players. I think we kind of already addressed that just a little while ago in our talk there, and now he's dealing with an elbow and an ankle, and I don't think it's so much father time as it is to just kind of it's helpful to not have and like I said, Alex and I will probably drill this further down later on tonight in the All-22, just a little bit more attention that he's getting in there because teams are not having to deal with the TJ Watts and on a weekly basis.
Yeah, I don't want to say that he's, washed. I mean, again, he was fantastic in week 1 against Volson.
It doesn't fall off that quick unless,
right.
Unless you're, really not healthy,
So I think there's a couple elements to it that we talked about, but certainly the bottom line is he needs to produce more splash plays. I know it's asking a lot out of him, but I ask a lot out of stars, more than I would ask out of the quote unquote average player, because stars can elevate their game better than the average Joe, even for the NFL can. So looking for more out of Cam Hayward.
Indeed. I mean, look, that was one of my keys to the game. It's got to have more out of him. Another key I think was the yak yardage. Another key was up in their third downs, which they were apt. They actually did have more success on third down against the Jets, and man, they better, because the Jets, I think defensively is like 50% something success rate against them and all. But as long as TJ Watt, remains out, going to have to start seeing some more from Cam Hayward. And I think, other than finishing some of those sacks, I thought Alex Highsmith, played okay overall there. I mean, once again, I think he'd like a big do-over on several of those snaps there. Bryce writes in, we're done with the first quarter of the season already, and there's plenty of drama and storylines to discuss. He says, I was surprised that Tomlin made the move to pick Pickett like he did. He thought Kenny played with a lot of moxie and grit, but neither quarterback was helped out by the anti-playmaking of Deontay, Pat, and Claypool. And yes, Alex, Pat goes on that list, because while that sideline throw was not a good decision by Kenny, Pat got 2 hands on it and has to make the play. He says, like you said, the great ones make a high catch like that in a crucial moment, and Pat aspires to be great. Too many young guys with talent making too many mistakes in crucial moments of football games. Number 2, he says, it's disgusting to see the lack of finish by this defense, and Tomlin and Austin have to be taken to task for putting liabilities like Spillane and Millette in coverage. In the immortal words of Dave Bryan, I don't want to see it anymore. The team needs to find better answers in coverage of those key positions, because those two ain't covering anybody. Well, Bryce, hopefully the talk that Alex and I just had and the post that Alex did will show you the reason why they got stuck in, that personnel grouping. And, it's not an excuse as much as it is. That's why it happened.
Right. And with Freiermuth, sure. I mean, I bet Freiermuth is sitting there saying, I got to make that catch. I got to make that play for my rookie quarterback. I mean, again, he's someone that certainly is a pretty big self-critic. But my issue with Pickett is less about the actual throw and more about him drifting back so far that invites pressure, that creates this kind of hurried panic throw. And I think Pickett's just finding out that tip passes become interceptions at the NFL level. Maybe not so in college, but certainly on Sundays. And, Deontay, a catch slightly over his head versus Freiermuth having to jump straight up into the air, I think are two pretty different things.
Joe Clemens writes in, I heard that it said that Mitch Trubisky wasn't allowed to audible at the line, being hamstrung like that, wasn't able to perform to his best of his ability. I don't know where that came from or how true it could be, but could you guys talk about it? If that could have been a thing and why? He says, to me, Mitch is a talented quarterback that maybe doesn't trust himself or his playmakers to make a play on the ball. Kenny has already shown he is, and I think next time he puts the ball in a place only Freiermuth or Claypool can make a play, they're going to step up because, in all capital letters, he has given them that shot. Thanks for the best Steelers coverage all around. Look, you can't be selective and say, okay, well, they didn't make they each had opportunity to come down with a football in the game from Pickett, but didn't. But now they are going to step up because he's given them a shot. You see, Joe, maybe where that statement's kind of flawed. Look, I don't care who's at quarterback. These guys, this is the NFL. You got to make plays, period. So I kind of find that statement maybe a little bit flawed there, that just because one quarterback's in there over another one and because they didn't make plays the last time that they'll now make plays moving forward. I feel that's a little bit slanted, maybe, Joe, on your, I get what you're trying to say there, but I think that's too much optimism flavor being put in the water. Is that the right way to say that?
it's a way to say that
without getting on Joe too much here.
Yeah, I mean, again, I like Pickett showing the trust and allowing his guys to make plays. I thought Trubisky, more so in probably weeks 3 in that Jets game as well, was trying to give his guys chances to make plays, and they did push the ball more vertically downfield. But
they just didn't come away with
it. Yeah. I mean, there's a variety of reasons for that, but and from a player standpoint, from a receiver standpoint, they're trying to make the play regardless of whether it's Trubisky or Pickett, whoever's throwing the football, they want to make the play. That's their job.
The whole Trubisky audible thing at the line. I mean, to what degree, it's hard to really say. I know Pickett was asked after the game, and he said, one of the things he was doing was changing the protection and those kind of things. How hamstrung really are these quarterbacks, Alex?
Yeah, like you said, it's hard to say for sure. Does audibly mean being able to change the protection, or is it changing the entire play? I mean, what exactly, how do you define that? We don't quite know for sure. So I would say that it's pretty limited overall in terms of the freedom these quarterbacks have in this pretty structured offense. There are certainly some things that can be changed and adjusted, and hopefully with time that kind of menu opens up a bit for a guy like Kenny Pickett, but we'll have to see.
Athena writes in, dating back to Plaxico days, every time the Steelers draft a tall wide receiver, we're told that he's going to be this incredible weapon in terms of 50-50 jump balls, and it almost never comes to fruition. He says size is an overrated trait for a wide receiver because few know how to leverage that advantage. He says Claypool's not one of those few. If he was, he would have been a top 10 pick. He doesn't have body control, and his timing and ability to high point a ball just aren't there. Unfortunately, fans overrated him after a good rookie season and bought into this Mapletron narrative. His impressive physical traits simply don't translate as well on the field. Once again, it goes back to he did make some 50-50 plays. And, the thing, too, that we haven't really talked a lot about when it comes to Claypool's rookie season is the amount of pass interference penalties that he drew, right?
True.
And had how many deep ball pass interference penalties has this team drawn this year?
Very few. Some. I don't know the exact number, but for Claypool, not like he used to. And why that is, I have no idea. If that's just a pure luck thing or matchup thing or what, I don't know. But I think the reader has a good point that generally the jump ball guys don't always work out the way they do in college. In college, they can kind of moss guys all day, and that can work. In the NFL, it's a lot harder to do. But with Claypool, he's a really good athlete too. Sometimes you get the Treadwells of the world, and they're not good athletes. They're just big guys that can jump, and that really makes them limited. Claypool, he should be a fantastic athlete. He should be better than what he is. But I hear that, as I've always said, my favorite receiver is an open one. I'd rather have the guy who gets open rather than the guy that just tries to win contested, unless you're a George Pickens type that can make those routine catches, those unbelievable catches look routine. It's going to be hard to win consistently. So I think it's a fair point overall. But again, Claypool should at least be winning a bit more than what he has been the last 2 years.
Where are you on Claypool right now?
Not that hopeful, I guess. I mean, I want to let this whole season play out. We're still just 4 weeks into it for him individually, but it's not been good enough. He's not playing to his talents, not playing to his size, and at some point you will ask yourself, why is he playing at all?
Is he? What's going to happen in the slot here when Calvin Austin gets up and running?
I mean, Claypool's still going to be the starting slot receiver. We'll see what Gunner's situation is. Austin could become the backup there, and they'll find some ways to get him involved. But I don't think Austin's going to siphon snaps away from Claypool anytime incredibly soon.
I would like to see Claypool do better with his size. He's got to give more effort and be a better blocker out there.
Right. I think he does not play to his size at all. Right.
I think Tyler Wise has pointed that out more a few times. What happened on that play over there to the right side, Alex, with Freiermuth and Claypool?
Yeah, it was an RPO. My guess is that Claypool should have ran a slant there. Usually you get that slant flat combination. And my guess is Claypool throttled down because the cornerback was playing off, and then that made it look all bunched up with Freiermuth kind of in that airspace as well. But my guess, and it's hard to judge miscommunication, my guess is Claypool should have run a slant there.
Is that how much is that on Claypool? How much is that on coaching? Yada yada.
My guess it'd really be on Claypool. I think he kind of just adjusted his route the way that he saw fit based on the way the cornerback was playing, but either didn't realize Freiermuth was going to run the out or didn't realize it was going to look so bunched up the way that it did. So my guess is Claypool was kind of being a little taking liberties with the route on that play.
Najee Harris was not too happy about it, was he?
What was Najee mad about? I mean, obviously the route was screwed up, but what would Najee be so upset about?
I think he saw somebody that had an MA on that.
Yeah, why would Najee be upset? I mean, he didn't screw it up, and I mean, it didn't cost this team a massive play.
I think he was trying to visibly. he talks with his hands, I think.
Okay. A little part Italian, Najee Harris.
Always look around at the other players when something don't look right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, clearly there was something got screwed up there. My guess is Claypool, but yeah, it was a pretty strong reaction from Najee on that play.
Todd Gensler writes in, "Hey guys, you fellows are always the best, most accurate and objective podcast out there. Thanks." Thanks for that, Todd.
Thank you.
That's exactly what we try to do. Got another nice email from somebody earlier in the week. I don't have the name, but I forwarded
Andrew. I think it was Andrew. Yeah. I responded to Andrew. Yeah.
Okay. All right. We try to, because we constantly try to learn more and more every week. That's what we try to do with each other. And we've got some great Tyler Wise and Meade and all these guys that look at film. We're constantly trying to pick things apart and learn from things and learn from other of the guys on Twitter and all 22 and all like that. And we do try to present it in a most objective way. We try to take a media approach to it, but add on to more than just reporting stuff, help speculate into that as well too. It's kind of the way we built the site over the years, and hopefully the way that we come off more times than not, and it's not going to be 100%, is more accurate by the week, by the year, and more objective by the week, by the year there. So we appreciate that statement. He goes on to write there, I think Tomlin and the Steelers organization always feel they are one or two players away from a championship, which is why they got Minka, Freiermuth, Harris, Pickett, etc. when they did. It has significantly weakened our trenches and core of the team. That being said, it's probably okay to have a down or rebuilding year to load back up in many areas. He says, Dave, you said we need 5 first-round picks. If we have a top pick and there are so many teams covering or covet, I think he means coveting one of the upcoming quarterbacks, we may be able to trade that away for more in the first round. What are your thoughts about that? Being mediocre has never allowed us a top tier picks, and we have so many holes to fill. What would you do? Do you trust Tomlin and the GM to get it right? He says this can be Pickett's time to learn and grow and still have a team finish toward the bottom of the league. I do agree. Let me start at the back end of this email. Let's work the other way. I do agree this can be Pickett's time to learn and grow, and you still have a team that finishes toward the bottom of the league. How far to the bottom? We're going to find out here. I do think still, because of when this switch is made, and Alex and I just went over in either the live stream or the last podcast about the second half of that schedule, and some of the if you get back healthy and yada yada, they might be able to win some games in the bottom half of that second half of the league. I don't have any optimism that this team's going to make a playoff spot or anything, but I do think that it's a time for Pickett to learn and grow, with the team, more than likely finishing out of the playoff race. So I agree with that. As far as the team needing 5 first-round picks, that's obviously kind of a tongue-in-cheek statement. And I guess in so many words, he's trying to ask if, like, the Steelers finish with let's say a top 8 draft pick overall, what would I think about trading down and maybe getting another first round pick or obviously multiple early round picks there? From where I sit right now at this given moment in week 5 of the NFL, and the fact that you're not going to need a quarterback, at least you hope you're not with that early pick. And look, I don't know anything about the top end of this draft class either, as far as, that's not going to come until later. My gut feeling, based on the way Todd's laid out this email, Alex, is hell yeah, trade down.
It's hard to respond to a trade down question on October 5th. I don't have a lot of information or a lot of ways to answer that. And listen, if Pittsburgh's picking number 6 overall, and you got Bryce Young and CJ Stroud going 1 and 2, then you might as well be picking at 30, because no one's coming up to 6. But point taken overall, and I've always been somebody in favor of trading down. I think the teams don't do that enough. The team should basically get as many darts to throw at the dartboard as possible and as many picks as possible to try to increase their overall hit rate and success rate. Now, under Kevin Colbert, this team basically never traded down in the first round, but we're in a new chapter with Omar Khan and Andy Weidel. So who the heck knows how this team would approach things. So it's something I'd be certainly in favor of potentially doing, but it depends on your own team needs and the board and offers and 100 other variables that could not even be considered right now.
Yeah, Todd, look, don't hang us by our tongue here on October 5th, because
who should the Steelers draft, Dave, for the 2023 NFL draft? Tell me today.
Yeah, I wish I could. And we try to be upfront and honest with it. We are so in tune with what the Steelers do throughout the season, and we've got guys like Kai Tritter and Tyler Wise and Josh Carney to some degree that pay a little bit more attention to college. But I can't tell you what the top of this draft class looks like right now. And, we got to see some more things play out with some needs with the Steelers. Got a pretty good idea of what some of the needs are. But my gut feeling as we sit here on October 5th right now is if this team were to have like a top 8 pick, they should explore possibly trading down. So I'll leave it at that. Don't come back around draft time and say, well, you said, you thought they should trade down. It's just where I sit right now, just based on what we know.
Right. It makes sense, but without the actual particulars, it's really hard to comment on it.
Let's see. Long distance dedication. Dear Casey, this might be. Do you know who Casey Kasem was?
I do vaguely. He was the radio guy with that really good voice that fit the era. So
well, he used to do a nationally syndicated show,
Okay.
American Top 40. My voice very Peter Brady like there, but
leave it to Casey Kasem.
Counting down the hits, and basically they would start at number 40 and work backwards, and there'd be little segments, and there was one to be a long distance dedication where he'd get, and not an email back then, it was definitely a letter, but you get a letter and it'd be a long distance dedication, and it was dedication usually revolving around a song that was in the top 40. So he'd read out this long letter and heartfelt letter, and well, here you go, Eloise, here's your long distance dedication. Well, anyway, that's the form that Eloise has this email here. It says, "Dear Casey, just wanted to hear your and Alex's thoughts. I've been seeing Ben Roethlisberger get a lot of flack for his it's the whole offense, and you can find some of these archived American Top 40 segments actually on YouTube, I think. Not the full things because they can't play the songs, but you can hear the kind of dialogue in there. And I got to admit, some nights late at night, to reminisce, I go there and kind of pull those up there. So I know you'll be busy doing that now instead of drilling.
As soon as we get off, that's where I'm going, Dave.
Instead of drilling. Isn't the age difference between me and you just absolutely phenomenal here that we're able to have some common ground here. Anyway,
how nostalgia are you trying to get here to end this show?
I know. Anyway, I've been seeing Ben Roethlisberger get a lot of flack here for his "it's the whole offense and not just Mitch" comment, with people not saying it's you, Alex, calling it a passive aggressive shot at Canada and Tomlin. Eloise writes, "It's really not. It's really just an honest assessment of the problem, and admitting you have a problem is the first step to recovery. Even just a cursory glance at the All-22 tells that story for us. It's hard for anyone to play quarterback when you got one guy run blocking to the left and taking an L while the rest of the line pass sets to the right, taking L's. Najee misses his block. 14 and 11 run to the same spot at the same time, and it's the fourth time they've called that play that game. This is a real thing that happened," Eloise writes. "This offense has a long way to go. We know it would. Will it look better with Kenny? Yes, pigs can wear lipstick. Kenny has good footwork, is comfortable taking a regular drop than throwing hitches and back shoulders. With his janky and bizarre feet, that wasn't Mitch's thing. I think it's fair to expect more points, but not a drastic turnaround. He's just giving his fair assessment." So the long distance dedication was just more catchy, not really a dedication, but Eloise just wanted to kind of get on kind of the flack that Ben Roethlisberger has been getting for his evaluation, I guess.
No, I get that. I think to try to boil this down to X is the reason why this offense has been bad would be reckless to do. There's a lot of reasons. I know we both have tried to point out what is the blame that goes on Trubisky, what is the blame that goes on Canada, what's the blame that goes on other elements and pieces of this offense, and it's a lot of people. So I think like you and I talked about, Trubisky to me was not terrible in that Jets game, and again had those two minor things, two slight changes happen to dramatically change plays with the interception to Deontay and the potential touchdown to Deontay. Mitch Trubisky is probably still his team's quarterback for the rest of that game and for Week 5 against the Bills. And so, to an extent, that Trubisky might have gotten a bit of a raw deal, but bottom line is you have to produce. Bottom line is you have to move the football, and Trubisky really wasn't going to dramatically change his career to get you to accomplish those things consistently. And when you're behind or when you're ahead of a first-round pick, that clock's already ticking. That meter's running. And when your offense is just overall struggling, it's no surprise to see a team make a change and find out what they have in the guy that they think can be their next franchise quarterback.
All right. One last one here from Randy. Hey, guys, Randy from Knightdale, North Carolina. Really love the show. It's the only place for high-quality Steeler news. I've been a longtime Steelers fan, but I've been frustrated with the shortcomings of scouting and analysis when it comes to preparing for teams, both opponent and self-scouting. Why hire Brian Flores if you're not going to utilize his talents in disguising a defense or dialing up some sim pressures? They really need to do a better job disguising coverages, free snap, and making halftime in-game adjustments. Also, with Kenny Pickett as a starter, why not use Mitch in design packages to run the ball or run some option the way San Francisco used Trey Lance in his rookie year? He is really dangerous with his legs and can be given some RPO and one read concepts to make the other team still have respect the possibility of the pass. All the best, Randy. Look, you're not going to have any of that used, and Kenny Pickett's got mobility too, so you can use what you're describing with Mitch, design packages to run the ball in some read option. You can do some of that limited stuff with Kenny Pickett as well.
Right, and they did that on his second touchdown. That was a read option play with the option to hit Freiermuth in the flat. Flores it's always hard to suss out some of the influence, but you've seen that 3-3-5, which is what Flores was doing in Miami, and they were running in New England, and so you've seen that carry over post-Watt this year in Pittsburgh. They did seem to run some pressure against the Jets, and they have disguised things. They rotate their coverages or safeties pretty heavily, so I would say they're doing some of those things that you're asking about.
All right. Anything else you would like to add, Alex, before we get out of here?
No, I think that covers it. We'll be back on Friday, hopefully with a Bills beat writer to cover Buffalo and get some more clarification on the injury report for Pittsburgh.
All right, Alex, keep your feet on the ground and keep reaching for the stars.
Don't even know what that means, but is that a Casey Kasem?
that was a Casey Kasem hook that he would say at the end of every show. Keep your feet on the ground and keep reaching for the stars. That's probably a great time to get out of here now. Dave doing a bad Casey Kasem impression. Hopefully the older people that are still around listening to this when the earth was still cooling, enjoyed my kind of look back at Casey Kasem. And if you get a chance, go to YouTube and search for some of them old American Top 40 episodes. Take you back in time a little bit there. So in the meantime, you can follow me on Twitter at Steelers Depot. Follow Alex on Twitter at Alex_Kozora. Follow the show at Terrible Podcast. Email the show, theterriblepodcast@gmail.com. If you like what we do, donate to the cause, SteelersDepot.com. Let's see. Also, if you'd like an ad-free version of the site, SteelersDepot.com, hit the ad-free button up right navigational bars. So until Friday, we'll be back previewing the Bills and hopefully with a beat writer on top of it. As always, thanks for listening to the Terrible Podcast with Dave and Alex.